And you're back here on the Mountain 107.9 FM. Yes, this is a Morning Cup of Joe featuring DJ Donuts with special guest Dennis Hong. Oh man, this is an exciting show for us. This is an iconic show, I must point out.
Hey, thank you.
Not only was it's my little sister's 21st birthday. We called her and sang happy birthday to her this morning. And it's our first celebrity guest that we've had.
I know.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate it.
We're going to have to do this more often.
I don't really think of myself as a celebrity, but all right, sure.
Well,
I mean, if you made the front page of the Huffington Post, then you're a celebrity in our eyes.
You definitely have more achievements under your belt than both of us.
Excuse me.
Thanks.
I have 30K gamer score. Get on my level, bro.
It's all relative.
All
right. Before we left, before we went to break, I should say, we were getting started on the list of 6 deadly injuries you think you'd survive thanks to movies. An article written by you back in 2010 with over 4 million views. Would you like to continue on with that? Maybe give us our first point?
Sure. So just to, I guess, finish the introduction, we'll sort of paraphrase from the article because I thought this was a pretty good metaphor. But the problem is that Hollywood does to body trauma what porn does to pizza delivery.
There we go. That's a good.
That is relative, actually.
Because it takes it to totally unrealistic, albeit visually satisfying extremes.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's
thought it
what
was
we
going to be
see.
financially satisfying too, but I was wrong.
Well, for the producers, I guess.
Oh, I'm talking about pizza delivery.
Oh, pizza. Okay.
That's actually
Yeah.
that's his job.
That's right. So to get started, then the first entry is when you get knocked out by a blow to the head. And this is something that we see in action movies all the time. The hero gets knocked out by...
James Bond.
Exactly.
Isn't that like his one move?
Yeah.
Go behind somebody and knock him out?
Yep.
Isn't it with like a shoe sometimes or a bottle?
Anything.
Yeah, or the butt of a rifle.
Yeah.
It can be anything. Yeah, a bottle. Yeah, perfect. A brick. Anything.
Yeah.
So, and Back to the Future, right?
Oh,
That's right.
Marty McFly.
It's like the whole premise of the movie practically is Marty getting knocked out several times through the course of the movie.
Yes.
Or through the course of the trilogy, rather. And I'll actually come back to that because I kind of use that as my main nitpicking point, so to speak. Because the reality is that, and if you guys are football fans, you know this. If you get knocked out, if you actually get hit so hard in the head that you lose consciousness, that's a concussion.
Steve Young knows. Steve Young knows.
Yeah. and me being a hockey fan, that's a big thing in hockey too. You see guys getting concussions all the time. So the reality is if you get hit in the head hard enough to get knocked out where you actually lose consciousness, it will mess you up. So what we see in the movies is that somebody gets knocked out and they wake up, maybe like half an hour later, and they're tied up or they're in some sort of predicament now, obviously, because they've just been knocked out. But they have their senses, they're still thinking straight, they're very clear-headed, and they know exactly what they need to do. And so now the next scene is how they're going to orchestrate their escape.
Yeah, not rushing off to the hospital to be checked.
Exactly. But the reality is, if you get knocked out for, say, half an hour, which is, I think, what we can estimate, what a lot of these movies are going to show, you're not going to be thinking straight. When you finally come to, you're going to be dizzy, your head is going to hurt, you might be puking your guts out because you just somebody just bashed your brain in.
Yeah.
So the reality is that if you get knocked out by a blow to the head, it's going to be very, very deadly, if not fatal. And then, of course, going back to the Future now, if you get knocked out multiple times, as, again, any sports fan knows, multiple concussions, they accumulate. So that second concussion is going to be way worse. And the effects just start adding up. And by the time that Marty got his, third, fourth, fifth one, I think? I kind of lost count how many times he got knocked out over the course of the trilogy. But by that time, he's going to be kind of reduced to a slobbery, bluthering fool, really. That's really what it comes down to.
I would assume brain damage starts kicking in at some point, right?
Pizza.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the first point that I made, is that the way they show people getting knocked out in movies is completely unrealistic.
It's good to know. I've actually been curious about that, and
I've always
kinda-
wanted to knock Joe out one time.
just to try it out.
Well, if it's just the one time, and as long as he's not out for more than like 5 minutes, and I think you might.
If he's out for 5 minutes, I'm leaving him there in the street.
yeah,
I think
away.
for the most part, when I get into a movie, I kind of have already accepted that the Hollywood side is
Yeah.
going to come up for the most part, and I just see it, and like even watching just specifically James Bond movies,
Yeah,
it's so far of a reach that I'm just like, whatever. That
Yeah,
guy's car is awesome.
Yeah.
By that, I just
Yeah.
focus on other things.
yeah. But the funny thing is, I think those things we can buy those things, or we can accept those things because they say, well, he just he works for a government agency. They've got a ton of money. They can make a car that fancy. They have the technology to make
With
the car
missiles.
Yeah, exactly.
We have the technology.
Yes, there you go. But like I said, it's certain limitations of the human body. We just can't. There's no way no human body can take that kind of beating, and that's the point of this article. So should I go on to the
Yeah,
next one then? Okay,
please
so
continue.
So the next one, here's another one that you see a lot in action movies. And
All
that
the
is
time.
Getting thrown by an explosion. And it's kind of funny because I think the seed for writing this article was planted at least 15 years ago, because I still remember the exact movie. It was Mission Impossible, the first Mission Impossible with Tom
yeah.
Cruise. And I don't know if you remember the scene, but he's on a helicopter, and the helicopter is flying after the French TGV, the train that goes like 100 miles per hour. So
Yes.
basically, he's on a helicopter flying 100 miles per hour, chasing behind a train. He sets an explosive on the helicopter, blows up the helicopter, gets thrown by the explosion onto the train, grabs the train, and that's how he makes his escape.
Yeah. that
Luckier
seems-
than the
Yeah.
lotto players
I know,
these
right?
days.
So you're thinking, okay, well, I mean, he's getting thrown by an explosion, but so maybe he's going like 100 miles per hour. He gets thrown 100 miles per hour, but the train is going 100 miles per hour, so that makes sense, right? He's going at the same speed as the train. He lands on the train, just grabs on, and that's it. And so, sure, theoretically, I guess that is possible. But I remember seeing that. I remember thinking, I don't think that is what happens to your body when you get thrown by an explosion.
Hey, I've been thrown
Not
by
so-
explosions
Yeah.
all the time. What are you talking about?
Yeah, and
GTA 4.
so I think a good example is if you've seen have you guys seen The Hurt Locker?
I actually haven't. Have
Okay,
you?
it's
I have
it's a
not,
really
but
good
I've
movie.
always wanted to watch it.
So
that's for
it's
sure.
about I forget the term, explosive ordnance. They're bomb people for
In the
for
military?
for the
EOD?
military. EOD, yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. You should know, right?
Yeah,
So
he would know.
it's about yeah. There you go. It's about EOD.
Okay.
So it's about they're in Iraq, and the movie kind of follows this group that they go around, and whenever they find a bomb, they have to defuse it.
Yeah.
So
Wait,
I
at
don't
one
know if
point,
I
does he
should-
take off his blast armor? 'Cause-
yes,
Yeah, I
yes.
have seen it actually.
because
then.
he's in a car. It's in a car, and he's
Yeah.
like you know what?
If I'm gonna
it
die, I'm
goes,
gonna die comfortably.
So
Yeah,
I might
exactly.
as well. Yeah. So he takes off his armor. Everybody else is because he's sort of like the Maverick.
Yeah.
He's in the wild card. So everybody else is like 200 feet away, going, what is he doing? What is he crazy? And meanwhile he's flipping through the car trying to find the trying to defuse it. Yeah. That's Hurt Locker.
So I have seen it.
And so I guess maybe I shouldn't spoil the movie, but there is one scene
Spoiler
where you
alert.
see somebody actually get thrown by the explosion, and he's in his full suit, and they do show in somewhat graphic detail what actually does happen to your body when you get thrown by an explosion. And so I think that people think that okay, as long as you're far enough away where you're not in that initial flame, then you'll be fine. You're not going to get burned. It's just a shockwave. The shockwave will push you. It'll gently nudge you to wherever you're going.
The
So if-
shrapnel will play no
Exactly.
play whatsoever.
No, not at all.
So if you're already running, then it just gives you a gentle nudge, and it helps you to get a little further away from the explosion.
Exactly.
So, and that's, if you think about it, that's how every movie portrays that.
It is very true.
People get thrown by explosion, and it's in slow motion, right? They're running from you see the fireball come up, they're running, the shockwave hits them, and then they get thrown. So for this one, I think I'll keep it a little not too graphic, because if you ever want to know, if you're morbidly curious what is going to happen or what your body will look like if you ever do get thrown, and this is just the shockwave. We're not talking about being in the middle of an explosion where you're engulfed in flames.
That's kind of self-explanatory.
Right,
what
yeah.
happens to you then?
It's going to incinerate you. But this is just the shockwave, where you're far enough away where you only get hit by the shockwave. Like you said, the shrapnel. So, you're getting objects flying at you at hundreds of miles per hour, basically at the speed of a bullet.
Burning hot objects as well.
Exactly. Pieces of metal. So even discounting that, let's say for whatever reason you get lucky and there's zero shrapnel. You're not hit by any shrapnel at all. This is just a shockwave. And the term I would suggest that you Google and do a Google image search for is called total body disruption. Or there's
DJ Donuts is all over it
he's
right
on it
now.
right now. So total body disruption is actually the official term that they use. And there's another term that they call bowel contusion or bowel perforation.
Oh man.
Just
I can only guess what we don't need. Oh goodness. Yeah, we definitely won't need to Google that second one. That's for sure.
I think somebody's traumatized now.
Oh man, this is
This is pretty bad. I'm going to lean over here.
Oh, that's. Oh man.
We are with Dennis Hong, the author of the cracked article 6 Deadly Injuries You Think You Could Survive Thanks to the Movies, and we are currently on number 5, which is getting thrown by an explosion. And we were taking a Google break there for a second.
Oh,
We're going to go puke in the bathroom now.
Yeah, we break time. You want to go on to number 4?
Oh, okay. Sorry, I wasn't sure.
Is
if it was
the
time for a
image
break.
still engraved?
Yeah.
mine,
I
that's for sure.
thought it was time to break actually. So that's why I was. Okay, no, I'll go on.
Well, actually, before you do that, I'd like to remind everybody that you're listening to KRLY LP Alpine 107.9 FM The Mountain. This is a Morning Cup of Joe featuring DJ Donuts with our special guest, Dennis Hong. And we're so glad to have you here.
Glad to be here.
If you're just tuning in, Dennis is a freelance writer for crack.com, as well as a few different blogs of his, the lemonvibe.com, which offers dating advice, as well as Musings
Musings.
Musings, excuse me.
No problem.
Sorry,
I
we need to get him
misread
hooked
that.
on phonics. I know.
So it's just lemonvibe.com and then musings on life
Musings.
and love. Yeah, musings on lifeandlove.com.
So we're going to continue on. We'll probably do a couple more here. So
Okay, sounds good. So the next one, landing in a soft spot after a big fall. So another
this
common
one's
save.
very common.
No, this one does come with a big caveat because there is in fact an article on Cracked itself where we talk about big falls that people have survived, and there have been cases where, for example, somebody fell from an airplane and actually survived. So yes, it is possible. It is definitely possible to survive a huge fall. At the same time, that's sort of like winning the lottery.
Exactly.
It is possible to
All
win the
these are
lottery,
very
but if you're
chances.
going around with your day-to-day life depending on the possibility that you're going to win the lottery, then no, don't count.
I count on it daily.
Yeah. So basically, then in movies, they always show that. They show, and I think the first one that comes to mind is Transformers, the first Transformers.
Oh, definitely.
Remember when they get teleported by Jetfire, and then you see them falling, I would say, just from the camera angle, at least 50 feet into sand.
Yes.
And you're thinking,
I'm
oh,
actually
okay.
just picturing Megan Fox right now.
Yeah,
but-
yeah, that's-
okay, now
that's
I'll
exactly-
picture the rest. Okay, got it. Got
Now
it.
just remember, cleavage does not look as good when it's splayed across the desert.
It's
all
very
bloody.
true, but Megan Fox.
Yeah.
Never mind. We'll continue.
So in that
on.
case, I guess it's an acceptable reason to not have them reduced to a pile of human pudding. Basically, is what
Basically.
happened. So that is reality. If you fall, even if it's on a relatively soft surface, when you start falling, you accelerate very, very quickly. And once you get to actually, even before you get to terminal velocity. So terminal velocity is basically it is the fastest speed that your body can fall, and it's around 120 miles per hour. So once you get to terminal velocity, if you hit the ground, that's about the same as having a battleship land on you in terms of exactly.
Does your weight affect your terminal velocity? Because I would think heavier people would obviously get to a faster speed. It doesn't.
It doesn't. And that's one thing I remember as a nerd. I remember from physics class is that all objects are going to fall, not counting air resistance. So obviously, a feather is going to fall slower.
Yes.
But it's not because of its weight. It's because it's like a parachute and it catches the air more. So if you have two objects that are, let's say a bowling ball and a golf ball, they're going to fall exactly at the same. They're going to hit terminal velocity at the exact same time. So yeah, every falling object, once you hit that terminal velocity, or once your body hits that terminal velocity, if you, it doesn't matter what you hit. It's going to be pretty bad. And okay, maybe if you landing something really soft, like a cotton ball factory or something.
Oh yeah, that happens all the
everywhere.
time.
Yeah.
Those.
Yeah.
Oh, everywhere.
Or the marshmallow factory.
It reminds me
That's
of.
a delicious one.
That would be delicious. It reminds me of jumping off the playground when I was a kid, and that shock that you
Yeah,
get in your
yeah.
feet that is very uncomfortable, and that was one of my first
Fears.
I don't want to feel that feeling ever again. Feelings,
Yeah.
when you're, I can make this jump.
It's that black. It's like the black, soft kind of material.
Yeah.
That kind of cushions.
Yeah.
Yeah,
stuff
yeah.
on it.
The black.
And then when you get older, your friends dare you to jump off the roof, and then they're into pools or trampolines, or it just kind of changes as you get
Yeah.
older.
That's
but
where Johnny Knoxville comes in and tells you don't try this at home.
and then you start having an MTV show.
Yeah.
I know,
Well, you
right?
just have to suppress your instinct to survive, basically.
Basically, it just reminds me of that a lot.
Yeah, it's just got to go out the door. Yeah, and that's exactly it. I think intuitively we all know that if you're falling like that, then you're gonna have a bad time.
Yeah, you're gonna have a bad
Well,
time.
just put it that way. So
All right, continuing on
right.
with the 6 deadly injuries you think you'd survive thanks to movies. At number 3,
number 3 is getting knocked out again, but this time from gas or from a dart. And this is something that we see a lot too. Actually, James Bond movies, they always have this knockout gas. And so, yeah, what you see in the movie is that somebody gets shot with like its tranquilizer dart, or they get gas blown on them, and then they fall asleep, and they're out. And maybe an hour or half an hour later, they
Some
wake
time
up,
lapse
and
goes
again,
by.
Yeah, some time
Yeah.
lapse, and they wake up and they're fine. And this is actually kind of different than the other one about getting knocked out, because with this one, the problem is that is not how knockout gases work. And I don't know if any of you have ever had general anesthesia, like had surgery where you actually get put under.
Yes.
There's a specialty called anesthesiologist, and an anesthesiologist, their job on the operating table is to make sure that you don't die, because basically when you're knocked out with some sort of anesthetic, basically you're kind of hovering between consciousness and death. And so most likely what's going to happen is that if you get hit with a tranquilizer dart, and this is something that happens in real life, is that if they're trying to subdue an animal, is that you're going to walk around for a while and you're going to be kind of woozy, and then maybe by 5 minutes later you'll finally pass out. Or if it's strong enough, you'll pass out immediately and then you die. Because
so the quicker you pass out, the more likely you're going to die.
Exactly. If it's strong enough to knock you out within seconds, it's probably strong enough to kill you, because it's a fine line. What the way anesthetics work is that they basically induce an artificial coma. So you're just at that level right above dying, basically. You're not conscious. So it's a very fine line. And if you teeter on one end and put too much anesthetic, you kill the person. And I think Michael Jackson was a pretty good example of that. Right?
Pretty good.
Sadly. When I wrote this article, it was kind of soon, so I didn't mention Michael Jackson.
You didn't
but
want a too soon reference
yeah, I
in
think
there?
it was kind of a too soon thing.
Yeah.
But now that it's been a few years, I guess we can say that now. That's exactly what happened to Michael Jackson, was that the doctor wasn't monitoring his sedatives and it killed him. So either it's not going to knock you out at all, and you're just going to be kind of grumpy and maybe a little bit groggy, and you're still going to do whatever you need to do, or it's just going to kill you. That's
I
reality.
actually remember I had my appendix taken out. I think it was 9th grade. I was in 9th grade. That weekend, I just sang Britney Spears in front of the whole school. And that
was
Sunday,
that because of the knockout gas, or was that voluntarily?
I think
No,
it was voluntary.
Oh, that was
voluntarily.
voluntary. Okay.
And
okay.
during, right before they put me under, I remember them saying, count back from 100. And, you'll be out. And it looked like a little milky stuff
And
going
then he was
into.
just like,
Yep.
hit me, baby.
I remember
one more
saying,
time."
I remember saying 98. and then I don't remember anything else.
Yeah, I think no,
Seriously.
I had an ACL surgery and I got knocked out one time, and I remember saying, "Wow, this stuff is awesome. It's better than whiskey." And that's like the last thing I
you
remember.
were done.
Next thing I remember waking up in the recovery room in a lot of pain.
Exactly.
So yeah,
I think one of my favorite knockout scenes was from Old School when Will Ferrell shoots himself with the horse tranquilizer.
yeah.
I always, dude, you just shot yourself in the jugular.
Whoa.
Yeah.
And falls in the pool and splashes down, and that's gets saved.
Yeah.
Actually, we have enough time to do one more, and we'll save the final one for.
Okay.
At number 2 of the 6 deadly injuries you think you'd survive thanks to movies, we have
Losing a limb. Now, just to clarify, because in the comments section, people always reference Luke Skywalker. And all right, we'll just say we're not going to count that one. And I'll explain why in just a minute. But basically, what we see in movies is that somebody loses a limb. They get their hand cut off or they get their leg cut off. And we're not talking on Monty Python levels of ridiculous.
That's immediately where my mind
exactly. So okay, we're not going to go that far because obviously everybody knows that that's not realistic. You can't have all 4 limbs and you're spurting blood out of your stump, basically. But even in a lot of movies, they do show that.
What about Saw?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Saw. That's the whole premise of the series, right?
Exactly.
It's like you sawing off your limb, and so what happens is if you do lose a limb, it gets a little bit graphic. But what can happen is that first off, if you don't clamp down your blood vessels, if this is a major limb and you don't clamp down your blood vessels, then you go through this inconvenient process called bleeding out. And
a little inconvenient.
Yeah,
a little inconvenient for your heart.
It's kind of sucks.
Yeah.
So when you bleed out, as you can imagine, it's a pretty self-descriptive term. All the blood inside your body leaves your body, and it just comes gushing out because you've severed a major blood vessel. And obviously, blood carries oxygen. So if you don't provide your body with a steady supply of oxygen, especially your brain can actually only last a few seconds without oxygen. So as soon as the supply of oxygen is cut off to your brain, you lose consciousness within seconds. So realistically what's going to happen is that if you lose a limb and you bleed out, you die right away. You're not going to have time to make this melodramatic 5-minute
take
long
off your
death
shirt
speech.
and cover it up.
Exactly.
So it's not like Call of Duty. You bleed out and you die and you respawn.
Oh no. That would be kind of cool. Yeah.
I was thinking life was just like
Those
that.
games lied to me.
I know.
Yeah. And then you can pick up an extra life, right? You just have to find that extra life. That would make life a lot more convenient.
Yeah, it would. It would be fun.
Yeah.
I think everybody would like the reset button.
Yeah.
On their a few different times in their life.
Yes.
If I may be so bold to make that jump for everybody.
Yep. So then just to kind of wrap up that one, I guess. So with Luke Skywalker, what people say is that, okay, well, it's a lightsaber. It generates intense heat, so it cauterizes the wound immediately. So
that's a good argument.
It is actually a good argument. But you know what? I actually mentioned that in the article. And so, but people still, I guess, did you guys actually read the article?
Yeah,
because
exactly.
I said that exactly.
What I have found is anybody that has something negative to say about articles are the people that just read the titles.
Yeah.
Like I'll post it on my Facebook. I'll be reading through them and kind of share them on my Facebook, and I'll get a few negative comments from people, and you can tell that they didn't read the article.
Yeah.
Like before you have anything to say about it, you should probably read the article, buddy.
Yeah.
We're here with Dennis Hong. And we're going to go to a quick timeout here on the Mountain 107.9 FM. This is a Morning Cup of Joe featuring DJ Donuts. We'll be right back right after this.